You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. It is Monday, December 26, 2022. Kristina, Dennis, and myself survived Christmas. Here we are, guys.
We did it. How'd you do, Damon Frank?
Really well. Always good. I love Christmas. You know, I'm really into decorating. I did have a little bit of post-Christmas emotional hangover where I'm realizing, oh my gosh, we got to take all this stuff down. And we just put it up. It seems I always feel like I'm running behind with that kind of stuff. I don't know about you.
No. You're never behind. You're always like 3 weeks ahead of me. So I'm not going to answer that question.
How was your Christmas? How did it go? How did it go? Did you have a good one?
It was lovely. Yes, it was very lovely.
Excellent.
Very subtle. My son is 18, so there's not a lot of that. We do get to participate in, part of our sober family. I've got some adopted nieces, and I got to go over there Christmas Eve and watch them open up their presents. And I mean, it's just so much fun to watch children open up their presents. But it's really better than getting anything yourself, when you can see them running around excited about what you got for them. And so that was lovely. And yesterday was more of a quiet day.
You know, it's kind of, this time is always kind of bittersweet sometimes for me, because you've got, our big thing is Christmas Eve. We celebrate Christmas Eve, and then Christmas is typically a little bit more low key. And, we're doing something different for Christmas Day this year, which will be fun. We did something different. And so now, this time between, today, really the 26th through New Year's is always kind of like the dead zone, for like business and stuff and for everything. It's kind of like there's a part of me that says, well, don't stop. You got to just keep going. And there's another part that says, well, you should be not doing anything, right? Like, so, and there's always that end of the year stuff. You got to, I didn't do that car insurance thing or that medical thing or this or that. I always feel like it's really rushed. Starting the 26th, it's rushed.
Well, yeah, it feels like we're running to stand in line. And, I love today's, theme about taking time out for yourself, because I think that you're exactly right. There's a lot that hangover, that emotional hangover, I think happens for a lot of people, and they're just not exactly sure what to do with today. But I have something that I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk with you about, I want to jump into that, but I want to talk a little bit about the whole timeout thing. I think this is, for people in recovery, is kind of a two-edged sword. A lot of times people have spent their time drinking, using drugs, being wrapped around addiction, just to get to a place where they have everything, things are somewhat together, right? And you have a life. So you taking time out for yourself, or taking a moment for yourself, just doesn't really seem like a priority, honestly. It just doesn't really seem like a priority a lot of times. No. But I find it's super important. And I think the right after Christmas area into New Year's is a great time to do a little reflection and just to take a moment out for yourself.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I do with this day. Because usually I'm pretty exhausted, and I think a lot of people are, but it's such a good time for me to spend, a good amount of time, like a couple of hours, really sitting in reflection. And so I have a couple journal prompts that I use every year that I think really help me. I think this week is a great time to look into, the last 12 months, look at them at a review. I know, January or December 31st is going to be here, and like you're running a great goals, workshop. And there's just a lot of reasons to be looking towards 2023. And I sometimes feel like there isn't necessarily an ending of the year that we just finished. And so I like to sit down and really use the journal prompt. What gifts did I receive this year?
Oh, that's nice.
And spend the time writing down all of the gifts that I received. And it puts you in such a place of gratitude. And because we can be disillusioned after this holiday, right? It's
Yeah,
commercial,
absolutely.
it's exhausting. If you're in recovery, there's a whole nother layer. And that just really helps me put into perspective, like a whole year went by and look where we were last year and look what has happened the last 12 months and really celebrate it. And I just love, even if I'm tired, I can start thinking about the gifts I received. And, I'll say one page, I'm going to write one page, but before I know it, it's usually 3 or 4. And it
I like
really
that.
puts me in that space, right?
I really like that. And I think that, one of the things that this could be easily swept up in just the
Hmm.
busyness of life, right? And I think the reflection part is good, not morbid reflection where like, oh, I should have
Mm-mm.
done this, I should have done that. I do something similar, I do
Oh,
something
really?
similar. Yeah, and I like your approach a lot. And that's why I like doing these episodes with you because we kind of talk about what works for us, right? What
Right.
works in our recovery. I'm a big 3x5 flashcard person. I have for since I've been sober, really. And I've
Yes.
done different things, but I pull out the 3x5 cards and I write down basically everything that I'm involved in and everything I did for the year. And I'll
Wow.
flip through them and I'll do like spiritual and emotional, like recovery stuff.
Hmm.
I'll do business stuff. I'll do personal stuff, right? And I'll have different colors on these 3x5 cards. I'll flip through them really quick and I will, from a gut, say, do I want to let go of this? And I'll have
Ooh,
two
I like that.
piles. And because part of, I think, with recovery, with taking a moment for yourself is being able, you can't do it if your life's too full of stuff that doesn't matter. Right. And I think
Right.
really like what you're talking about is trying to focus in on, okay, what matters and what doesn't matter. And I think so many times we're hard on ourselves. And I like your technique because it shows it's like, hey, you know what? Like, I got a lot done this year. I did a lot of stuff.
But in a lot of abundance. That's what it brings to me. I love that energy.
I love that. I love that. So tell us, Christina, let's dial in here on something personal here. So
Mhm.
how did you learn this whole thing about taking a moment for yourself? Because let's be honest, this doesn't all of a sudden come to you typically in recovery. This is
No.
usually a lesson that you have to learn. Was it a huge car wreck? Did you do something? Give us the dirt on this. What's going on?
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, everybody knows I work, and my love of recovery for codependency. And, when I became a mother, I was already 7 years recovered, 7 years sober. But I didn't get the message to take care of myself. I didn't understand it when people would say it's a selfish program. Like, I didn't get that. I even kind of wrestled against it. I'm talking about traditional 12 steps. And really, when I had my child and we took that detour because he was going to have extra needs, I really saw and had a good 10-year run where I did nothing for myself. I mean, and this is even in double digit sobriety, I felt compelled to live for him and do whatever I needed to do. And in some cases, that was necessary. But I also started to realize that I was putting way too much pressure on him. My happiness was tied to whether he would be okay or whether, this went well. It was still tied to results. And that I had physical breakdown eventually and
Mm,
realized I have got to figure this out because the last thing that I need to infer to my child is that I'm unhappy because he has struggles. And I don't know how to say it any differently, but he definitely taught me. One, he taught me about unconditional love, and two, I realized that what he wanted most from his mother was a happy mom.
mhm.
A happy mom who could smile and do what he needed me to do, even though there were lots of physical challenges. And so, yeah, I was slower than some people. I mean, I probably had 3 car accidents before I realized No, that's not even exaggeration. 3 car accidents before I realized if I don't take time out to sleep, if I don't figure out what I want, if I don't turn my lens toward the gifts and put my energy toward that, the challenges would take over. And then it would be a matter of surviving life. And that's just that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, you know what? It seems like you had to go there, right? Like to be able to figure
I
that out.
did.
It's not,
Yeah.
because I think the compulsion, honestly, and I don't know if this is something that comes along with addiction, is the compulsion is just to keep going. Like I remember
Yes.
this too. It's so funny. So many things emotionally sometimes also look like physical addiction. Physical
Mhm.
addiction, you have this compulsion to keep going. And it can't be the thing that you're using that's really destroying your life, right? It can't really
Right.
be the alcohol, right? It's the same thing with activity. One of the things that I got from 12 step groups, there is a passage in the big book that talks about packing too much into the stream of life, that we have to kind of sit back and be more passive. Now, for me, I got to tell you honestly, that's like sit back and the word passive and all that. Like, I don't like that. Just
Yeah, I
at
was
the
gonna
get
say
go, it's just not
you
my
didn't
thing.
gel with that, huh?
No, I didn't, and I still don't like it, but it's true. It's just like I've shared a lot of times too, like powerlessness, unmanageability, all those things. I friggin' like. I would much rather deal with anything else. Like, could you have like
Right.
snakes or alligators chasing me? Like, I don't want to deal with that, right? Like, but it's true. Like, you learn in recovery, you get beat down enough. Like you said, you had car accidents and everything. Okay, I have to take time out and I have to sleep, or I'm really not really going to be able to get anything done. And even if I get something done, what I've learned, Christina, is that it's like I've won the rat race, but I'm still a
Mhm.
rat. And
Yes,
no one
yes.
wants to, it makes no sense. I'm unhappy, I'm unfulfilled. It doesn't really even matter what I'm doing. I'm not getting anything out of it.
Well, and that comes from my core value system that I grew up with. We talk about dysfunction all the time and diving deep into childhood beliefs. My belief was that in order to have value, I needed to produce,
Mm.
period. And so that I produced for self-worth. And so that's a scam in itself because you have to keep producing. And then if you get physically sick like I did, then you are smack, down sitting with this actual understanding that I've got to figure out I have self-worth regardless of what my production is. And that was a really big lesson.
This is difficult for high performing people. I coach a lot of
Mhm.
people and do accountability stuff and early recovery for high performance people. Like, that's my thing. That's my jam. So
Mhm.
this is tough, okay? Because
Mhm.
I certainly didn't get sober to do nothing. Okay.
Right.
And that's not what we're talking about. And I think this is misunderstood a lot. So being able to take a moment for yourself is being able to let go in my terminology, right? And to be able to just stay
Mhm.
in the present moment without having to achieve something to get somewhere. I think
Right.
achievement in sobriety is great. Go out and achieve away, right? But the problem with it is when you have an addicted mind, you get addicted to the achievement. So like this idea
Totally.
of, like you say, about like, okay, um, I had, all this stuff's going on with you and you can't really let go to be able
Right.
to do that. I feel that's totally normal. Like, because that's the way that I think we're wired at the end of it. That's
Mhm.
why we're so successful. That's why you see entertainers and business people and all this other stuff that are in recovery, because we have the ability to wade through a ton of shit emotionally without
Yes.
cracking, because
Right.
that's been our
Wait,
training.
yes, yes, to maybe hide from it or move around it or somehow make it. And it's still this progressive dopamine junkie behavior. And now I can recognize it because I have, wild weeks. We get really busy here. We have, successful, exciting things that are happening. And I can get completely in that dopamine loop, searching for it. It's a lot like materialism for me, where I learned, and I think a lot of people learn it, in their due time, where you look for the things in life, the jobs, the titles, the accomplishments because you believe that's going to give you security, peace, and joy. And the truth is that that is very fleeting. Once
Hmm.
you have those things, that's very fleeting. You could just shortcut that and get to the peace, joy, and security by having a spiritual program. But it took a long time
Totally.
to figure that out.
Absolutely. It's interesting. A very wise person. I remember, I don't know, it was probably 15, 16 years in sobriety, and I was having a total meltdown on something. And this
Hmm.
guy that I totally love, who has helped me out a lot, basically, was talking about a lot of times in 12 steps, they talk about the restoration to sanity. Like,
Hmm.
especially if you look at like the history of alcoholism, a lot of this stuff was written about how they were hopeless and then all of a sudden now they're not. And this transformation that happened. And he started to talk with me about sanity. And he started to say, okay, is your schedule sane?
Mm,
And I go, what do you mean? He goes, look it up. Look up what sanity is, right? And I started looking, I go, you know what? This is a lot of this is unsustainable that I'm doing. And not only is it unsustainable, it's like I don't even know why I'm doing half of it. It is out of a
right.
compulsion, right? And this whole thing, it's like I have to always be producing for people. It's interesting. We really walk the line. You want to be of service. On one hand, you hear when you get sober, you're not going to stay sober unless you get of service. Go, go,
Right.
go. And the other hand, you hear, well, take it easy. No, it's not that big of a deal. And then you hear, well,
Hmm.
everything is a big deal if you don't say so, right? Like, so where did you, I'm curious, where did you first start to say like that balance of that? Because you can't be totally passive of everything in your life. I don't think that's
No.
healthy.
Well, and I don't think anybody who know me would say that I'm passive about most things. But really, like I said, that physical, I got very sick. I was having seizures from the lack of sleep. And I really recognized that I could not, even if I thought my will was the right choice, I could not impose it on other people. There was just no way. And I really knew that I had to detach with love and to start getting in the flow. And I'm telling you, I would have rolled my eyes at me if I had said that to myself 20 years ago, right? I would have punched somebody in the face if they had said, you need to detach and roll with love. But really learning how to do just the next indicated step, I understood that logically, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to turn off my traumatized brain that was already looking at 4 or 5 steps ahead. And, there's payoffs in being kind of hyper vigilant. And so I really had to, um, one, rest at a time that it felt like, no way am I going to be able to do that, and start asking for help. So I would have to say around year 16, 17 is when I started to realize that there were limits. And it is not quitting when you rest. It's just resting.
Well, I think, one of the things that I think you do learn is that this balance of, okay, and I get caught up a lot of it, you just go over the red line. It's like, okay, I've been here
Mhm.
before. I don't like this feeling. Here are the tools, like the tool you just shared. Here are the tools that I'm going to do to be able to reel myself back in so that I'm going to be, okay. Right. So I'm going to be able to do it. I
Mhm.
think one of the big epiphanies that I had, Christina, about 5 years ago is I made an announcement in a meeting that I was hosting where I said,
Mhm.
I'm going to suspend thinking because what I found out is that recovered alcoholics are very quick. We can
Yes,
say, especially if you're raised in a home that has alcoholism or dysfunction, you're able to read the room, read people very quick, find out what they need, and be able to find a way to be able to deliver it to them, right? Or to stay
absolutely.
away from them or whatever. Like we're very quick at being able to understand emotional intelligence, believe it or not.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
weird. You'd think it would be the opposite, but it's not. But one of the things I learned is that one of that is great. That's a great skill to have, a great soft skill to have. But what's not good about it is your mind is constantly going all the time, 24/7, 365, always
Right.
thinking,
Right.
thinking, thinking, thinking. And one of the biggest ways I was able to take a moment for myself was I actually scheduled times I'm able to think. I'm not talking about like executing something day to day. Of course, you're thinking, but thinking about your life, thinking about stuff like going on, like that exercise that you give, I'd schedule that and then I'd give it an hour. And then after an hour,
Mhm.
that's it, man. Like I let go of that. Where I started to really find freedom and joy was when I could stop obsessively thinking about myself, what I wanted to do, what I needed, what other people need, right? Like when I could just stop that and just say, no more thinking. I'm only going to think. And I wrote down, I'd set a timer. I'd think
Mhm.
twice. I started twice a week. It was so painful. Chris, I'm going to tell you,
Mhm.
it was like nails on a chalkboard. It was like, I hated it. And I'd find myself getting into the thinking again. And I said, no, I'm just going to execute what's in front of me and live my life and enjoy my life right now. I'll think about this stuff at a scheduled time. I would say like that was a huge game changer for me.
Wow, I love that. And, all of the things that you hear about in recovery, and things that we have on the Recovered Life Network, all of these skills help to set up and change our perspective. And when we know better, we do better. For instance, Kevin's meditation class is a wonderful place to help yourself gain that skill. And we know what meditation does. We have the scientific journals, we have a lot of neuroscience that we talk about. And really, we are changing how we think and we're addressing how we feel. I do a lot of nervous system work with my clients, and I learned that from my son. I learned that from understanding what it's like. He has a nervous system that's engaged and intense. Many alcoholics have a nervous system that is engaged and intense. That's why we drink. I love that you share about the thinking, because I think a lot of people who would be surprised to know how much is churning in somebody who's in recovery and that was why I drank, was to stop, thinking. So that's really, really, that's that's the
Well,
key, right?
I think it is a key. And let's be honest, like I've talked with you about, we've talked about our struggles just personally about
Mm-hmm.
trying to like one of the things that was, I think, a big mistake, some advice that I took in recovery that was a huge mistake for me, which was, and I think maybe it wasn't even advice, it was interpreted this way, is that this whole
Mm-hmm.
people that have addiction issues or are in recovery, they are able to really keep up a pace and go, right? Like they have
Right.
this hunt mentality a lot of the times. And I kind of interpreted that I should feel bad about that, that I should live this balanced life, that I should do
Oh.
all this other stuff. And I've shared with you, and I share a lot with my clients, that I think that that's a fallacy. I think that that's
Mm-hmm.
people that are built like me. They're just built like me. And I
Mm-hmm.
tried to hide that and ignore that and go into this weird systems thing of trying to become balanced at this and balanced at that. In 2022, I let go of that. I'd shared, I totally let go of that. Instead, what I do is I just go along with it because I feel comfortable there, but I
Mm-hmm.
have some bumpers. And one of them
Mm.
is being able to let go of things. If you're obsessive, like if you can keep that pace, right? But you can't let go of everything and you can't be honest with yourself to say, okay, man, I did 5 days. Like, I'll do 7, 8, 9, 10 days of work at Recovered
Right.
Life. And then I want a day or two to do nothing, absolutely nothing. Right. But I'm comfortable
Mm-hmm.
doing like that's what's comfortable for me. So it's being able to let go when you know that
Mm-hmm.
you definitely need to rest. Like, okay, I'm going to set it down, because that was a skill I never had that I needed. It wasn't that I worked 10 days in a row. I was passionate about what I was doing. I liked it. It was healthy. I was getting things from it. It was the inability to let go when I wanted to let go. That was the problem.
Yeah.
That was the problem. It wasn't the chase or the way that I'm designed or anything else, And I know that's a controversial thing. I mean, people will comment, "No, it's you got to be the balanced dude." I, I
Mm-hmm.
I don't like balance. I think it's
Mm.
bullshit. I just don't know anyone who's ever achieved it, right? Like,
I
point
don't
me
think
in a
anybody ever
direction.
has, really. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
so either, honestly, and I think the measure of your spirituality is when things are intense and how you're able to react to them, and I love that you kind of shame for that. And, I've learned a lot. Things change too. That's the other thing, life changes, circumstances change. And for me, I had to learn that I need a larger amount of sleep than most people, and I sleep about 10 hours every night. And I used to feel terribly ashamed of that. And then I realized, well, how who said 8 is what you need to do? And there's
Yeah.
some other reasons why I see it. And so I love that what works for you, and like I know what works for me. And
And
there's
I'm somebody who needs sleep, right? Like I know
yeah.
other people are like me that don't sleep at all, and that comes from I like to sleep, I like to eat, I like to I do things to take care of myself. But the reality is that if you are going, and you can't carve out any time for yourself just to be in the here and now, that's where the problems
Mhm.
start. I think if you're unable to let go, right? Like so, whether it's the technique I just shared or the technique you shared, I think like the lesson here for me in recovery is you
Mhm.
need something to be able that is for yourself in the here and now. If it's always about the future goal, if it's always about remedying something in the past or something you're going to do, that's not necessarily the here and now.
No, it isn't. And, in a 12-step program, they talk about our will versus higher powers will. And I learned something that if you were really attached to all the outcomes, then you probably were still living in your will. And that is something that I kind of will spot check myself with when I have that urgency, when I feel that little bit of angst about overcoming something. I have to stop and say, oh, okay, wait a minute. You are way too entangled in this and you need to step back, go outside. We're lucky. Damon and I both live in Southern California. So, I do a grounding technique. Every person needs to find out what works for them, period.
Absolutely, you
And,
do. You do.
and it, and it takes time to figure it out.
Yeah, this balance that people talk about is an individual thing. You're
I
not going
don't
to be
know
able to
about
template it.
it.
Like I saw people, it's like, I do what Tony Robbins does, or I do what all these people do. I'm like, well, you're not them. You know what I mean? Like that took
Hmm.
time to be able to build up to that pace and stuff.
So
And I think
true.
that's the big thing. It's like everything is, look, everything is unique when it comes to this kind of stuff. If you can stay sober, if you can work the plan, if you can work on yourself, right, you'll get to a place where you'll decide what doesn't work for you and what doesn't. And then it's just having the courage to be able to make those changes and let go of the stuff that doesn't work.
Hmm.
Kristina, before we leave real quick, I wanted to plug a room that's going on in Recovered Life, and it's the Shift Your Mindset room with
Talk about
Haley.
it.
Yeah, with Haley Shirters. And can you talk about that real quick? Because I think people who like this episode are going to like that room at 5 o'clock. When is it? It's 5 p.m. Pacific Tuesday.
Yes, definitely you want to hit that up. Haley has such a beautiful way of breaking down different belief systems and thoughts that we have, exactly what we just discussed about how you approach things. And she really brings in neuroscience and changing the mindset of ourselves. What is it that we think is really going on? What might be different? I mean, there's a lot of things that I learned over the last 27 years is about, oh, actually, I never even considered there was another perspective. And so she really breaks it down and allows each person to come up with their own language and to realize the power of thought that they have, to know that you can change your mindset, that it isn't just you and this is the way you've been and you'll always be. So many gems in that room. You want to make sure that you connect and RSVP for it.
Absolutely. You can check out Haley, meet her, go to that room. It's Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific. Shift your mindset. Go meet Haley, check it out. You're going to get a lot out of it. Kristina, really great room, really great episode today. Thank you so much. Taking a moment for yourself. I hope everybody can take a moment for themselves. If not today, tomorrow. Schedule it.
Definitely. Definitely.
All
Everybody be safe.
right, guys, go live your best recovered life. We'll see you next week.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.